Hey guys, Patrick Lewis here, co-host of SoulWiggle along with my good friend Chris Tuff. We're getting ready to launch our first episode. We got a great guest for this one, Mohamed Massaquoi. I think you guys are going to really love this. We go in depth in his journey through college athletics, NFL, a life-changing accident, and how he went about reinventing himself and what he's doing now. So stay tuned.
This is SoulWiggle, and I am so excited to have my good friend Mo here. This is going to be a good time. Patrick, you ready to throw down or what?
Yeah, I'm ready to rock, man.
Awesome.
I'm excited. Yeah, we were talking about kicking this off. You said Mo had to be the first guest, so
Let's do it.
yeah.
You ready?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, there's no real agenda. This is what you call choose your own adventure. Are you comfortable with that?
That's what I figured.
Well, Mo, take us from the top of, for those people that aren't familiar, that are not Georgia UGA fans, like take us a little bit through kind of what's brought you to where you are today. I know it's a long-winded story, but I mean, what's hilarious about walking around Atlanta with Mo, everyone talks to you, right? Everyone is your best friend. And it's funny, even like in my Instagram of us doing our weekly sprints, which by the way, Mo hurt his hamstring, so we haven't been doing our weekly sprints. But they're like, everyone's like, Chris, how do you know Mo? I'm like, I almost forget your background. So bring people a little bit up to speed on to where you are today.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the genesis of it. I'm a kid from Charlotte. Parents are from Liberia, so first generation American. Took to sports as a kid. That's kind of the escape from everything else, and was just really blessed to have a really dynamic head coach who we won 109 games in a row, 7 straight championships, and so you kind of learn the foundation of sports that led to Georgia. Go Dogs. Forget Bama for now.
I got nothing to say. Y'all on college football right now. So.
So Georgia worked out, ended up going to the NFL for a number of years, transitioned from there, and story got interesting a few years after I retired, where I became an amputee. That kind of led me on this journey of, org psychology, and so that's the space that I'm in now. So it's been a interesting journey to get here.
The ups and downs and all arounds.
For sure.
So take us through, I mean, did you enjoy football? I mean, as you were doing, how many kids grow up wanting to be in the NFL, right? Was that like something for you or?
Yeah, so sports is it's as a kid, you just play outside. And so almost every sport, basketball, football, how can you skip rocks? And Charlotte is a bigger town now, but growing up, it was still a small town. And I didn't know anybody that played sport. There was no real formula for it. It's just you just work hard and you love it and you're with your friends. And so you're playing with them, and then you get to high school, and high school kind of goes well. And it didn't really make sense to me until stepping on campus at Georgia, where you see the first class get drafted. You're like, oh, wow, this is kind of how this works. And then you're playing an eye test of, that guy kind of moves like me, similar skill set, this is where he went. If I continue on this path, don't crash out, I think I can get here. And it happens, and then you're like, wow, this is weird. Like, somebody gonna pull the rug out from under me. This is kind of cool. But then it becomes like your normal life.
Was there a lot of preparation for that when you were in high school, or did you just you had a natural skill set? You just played and you went to high school practices, or did you have a training regimen? You go, I want to go play college ball.
No, it once again, with my family not being here, I even remember when we used to start getting recruiting letters. It was just like, what are they doing? And then you get a scholarship, and even that concept of scholarship, Georgia SEC football was really foreign. Football was foreign somewhat because I'm from North Carolina, where you got Duke basketball, Carolina basketball, Wake Forest, ACC basketball kind of ran it. And so a lot of kids grew up wanting to play basketball, but there's only 13 people on it. So you're doing the math in your head, and you're like, well, it'll take me as far as it can. Yeah. But to actually get to the other side, that's kind of like this mythical land that only, other people get to. And so you just keep playing, and you start to see it, but you don't really know what it's going to become. it's a lot different from the generation now where they have trainers from the time they can walk.
Yeah,
Back then, you're
specialized.
playing on asphalt and just the love of the game.
So obviously you are, when I describe you to others, I'm like, it's kind of hard to describe, but you seem from the outside looking in as one of the most incredibly motivated people, right? You set your eyes on something and you go after it, right? And I mean, your trajectory and obviously the amount of things that you've been already able to impact and touch, from football into, investment banking, into then going back to school. And I mean, everything you do, it seems like you drive really hard forward. What is that, the same motivation as it was from football to now your professional life or like, how do you, what is that?
So if you see someone that you love working extremely hard and life seems super unfair, you're trying to figure out how to change that. And so that was the core motivation. But then for yourself, you start asking, like, what is my potential? Like, how far can I take this thing? And just the joy of competing with self, of who am I, what am I, if I actually go for it. And that is what honestly excites me, just to go. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to leave performance on the table. You don't want to leave potential on the table, because when you look back, you can see, like, I could have got more out of that. That feeling sucks. And so I don't want that feeling. And so I'm going for it, and I'm trying to figure out how to close those gaps. And then it's just truly the love of competition. And so if we're out there and you're like, let's go skip rocks, we're going to go skip rocks until, the arm falls off.
Or like doing sprints.
Or doing sprints. Or getting in the ice tub where it's like, I really don't want to do this, but this is something to conquer. And you just go for it. And it's a mental thing, to be honest with you.
Which, by the way, that was one of my favorite things after you did a cold plunge sauna sesh. But we had like 10 of us here or something.
Yeah.
And you and Fernando pulled me aside. You go, Chris, this is the whitest shit I've ever done. But then you laughed a little bit. I kind of dig it, though.
Yeah, culturally, it was a little different than what we were used to. But even that new experience of it's something new. It's life isn't scary. It's just different. It's new. And if you lean into it, you grow. And now if we go do it again, it's like, okay, I kind of know how to handle this situation. But if you are rejecting those situations, you're always going to be scared of these new challenges, opportunities. If adversity comes, you won't know how to handle it. But if you can kind of step closer to those things, you're prepared for life.
So do you think your upbringing, like, you obviously lean into a lot of stuff, mm-hmm. right? It seems like there's no fear of failure. Like, you want to lean in and learn about it and then try to be the best that you could be. Do you think your upbringing, like, allowed you to be more open to things and the maybe different things you saw or how you came up?
I would say in seeing some things in my upbringing, certain things don't scare me, because you see real life in a different lens.
Yeah.
And so some things aren't scary once you understand what you're dealing with. And so there's not a lot of things that necessarily scare me. There's things that I don't know how to do that I may be more passive with, but once I start to understand the mechanics of it, it's like, okay, it's go time. And even something as crazy as playing in front of 90-something thousand people, you kind of tune it all out, and it's more the internal battle. It's not the external stuff that I think about a lot of times.
How big of, if you look at your journey and you look at your injury, how much of an impact has that made on your trajectory?
For the first time, I think being an athlete, one of the things that's tricky to not do is we're so used to being coached. We're so used to being told what to do. And so they give you a play, you go run it, you go execute it. They give you a schedule, you do it. You know the rules of that. They're very defined in how you work and everything. And so leaving that world, I was somewhat lost because I didn't have that structure. And the accident was the first thing that actually made me stop and say, what am I trying to be intentional about? I have all this energy to go hunt, but I don't actually know where I'm supposed to hunt, where I'm supposed to channel that energy. And so it was just, it wasn't organized. It wasn't aligned to anything that was long-term purposeful. And so the accident made me stop and say, okay, let me calibrate. Who am I as a person? What do I want out of this journey as a person? What do I have to do to then close the gap in development and skill and experience, all those things? And so it made me super intentional with that. And you almost start from ground zero. Not almost, you do start from ground zero, which sucks because you're like, I actually don't know what I'm doing, but I know I want to get here. And I'm not going to get there just by wishing or thinking about it. So I actually have to start here, build up this really cool foundation, and then slingshot myself forward once I got these capabilities.
Are you slingshotting now?
Yeah, it's because it's the things that, by putting myself out there, being super vulnerable when I didn't know, you get the mentorship. By putting myself out there when I didn't know, you get opportunities where someone's not expecting you to like go 100. They're like giving you a lot of grace. And so you're building up this experience so that now when an opportunity does come, there's nothing that you're worried about because you've done the preparation, you've done the practice, you have the experience. And so now it's fun to walk into any situation like, change a logo, change the face of a particular person, change an industry, but like the playbook and the formula carries over, and it's not in theories. You've already done it.
You ask yourself a lot of questions to get to where you're at that a lot of young people don't ask themselves. They don't know how to ask themselves.
Yeah, because it wasn't working, and so you're the other thing of having my first real job was the NFL. And so with that comes like you're on this mountaintop and you have this artificial view of reality. When you're not in that bubble and you're starting to try to figure it out, you're basically like the 22-year-old coming out of college. And so if you don't strip that mentality away and start to figure out what do I need to do, you can't fake it. Like you're all in, like you can't fake it.
Yeah.
And so the quicker you realize that, you start to actually lean within self and say, all right, I have to figure this out or I'm going to continue. I'll have more years, but I won't have more growth. Mm-hmm. And that is something that I had to figure out like, okay, where am I weak at? Where am I deficient at? And a lot of times it's just learning to things that people say that, okay, this person has this objective. I need to go fix that for the next person.
Did someone mentor you in that, or is just something you found internally?
I found out internally, once again, because I had a lot of time to be introspective with the accident. And the problem was I was trying to solve for a lot of that stuff internally. I didn't have the right tools. And so there was time where I'd then go find a mentor and say, hey, I did this. It didn't feel right. How do I need to do this? And the more I would get advice, like, oh, I actually have like a secret weapon here. If I lean into these people that have been there, I don't have to make all these mistakes. It's almost like having a vet in the locker room where they're telling you how to watch film, telling you how to take care of your body, telling you how to do all this stuff. I realized I needed that in life. And so now in having that in life, I can go call, hey, Myron, I'm dealing with XYZ. What's the playbook for it? And he's like, well, I dealt with that 15, 20 years ago. And it's not in theory. It's like lived, and they could give you the pros, the cons, the good and bad, and then you have to go make a decision for yourself.
So would that be some advice that you would give like a 24-year-old or 25-year-old person that's really struggling, trying to figure out what their purpose or their place is or what they want? Would it be like find someone?
Go find someone that they can speak truth to you. Go find someone that can identify your weaknesses and you're willing to listen to them. Go find someone that can help you see around corners. Go find someone that sees like the rawness in you that needs to be refined. Someone that can align you to say, I know you're kind of messing around over there. I think you need to kind of come back over there. And the more that I've done that on my journey, I feel like things continue to move forward. The other problem with being an athlete is you're used to the hard work is going to get me the results. That doesn't really happen in the real world. You can work hard, but that doesn't really guarantee anything. You got to learn how to work correctly. And so a lot of me was working really hard, but it wasn't effective until I started to bring other people in and say, man, I don't know how to do this. And they say, oh, just turn it 90 degrees. Mm-hmm. That's how it works. I just spent 6 months struggling at this, failing at this thing over here. And the more you have those experiences where it's just not working and you can't fake it, you start to reach out to people that are smarter than you, more dynamic, been in more complex situations. And they're like, oh, just do this right here. And it's like, oh, shit, is it that easy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about those people that, I mean, not a day goes by that someone that I interact with comes to me and they're like, man, Chris, so like, I see all the stuff you're doing and you're always just so excited and energized, and like soul wiggling to me is like a daily existence, right? Like where these things that light my soul on fire, because I live and breathe that every day. But that was carefully crafted from the last handful of years as I've honed in on where it is that I want to go. What piece of advice do you give people that come to you that haven't necessarily had that catalytic event of a tragedy or a hitting rock bottom? And, for me, before this, we were talking about what was like one of those main trigger points for you. And I think you asked, what was the question you asked? It was, what was your lowest point?
Yeah, what was your lowest
Yeah, I mean,
moment?
and it's usually those lowest points that then help us to ideally pull back that slingshot and go forward. But, one of the things with SoulWiggle and developing this community of men to support each other, I think, is to operate on this idea that through connection and community, you don't necessarily have to go through that super dark moment in order to start seeking some of these things that light your soul on fire.
Yeah.
So what, I mean, yeah, what?
Most people on autopilot. What degree of autopilot? Advanced autopilot, low autopilot. Most people are on autopilot. They're either what they're around or what they think they aspire to be. And then you get there or you don't get there, and you're at tension with yourself because there's certain things that are natural to you. Like certain things are stable over time. And I think that's like when people have these midlife crises or they're trying to find themselves, they're actually trying to revert back to who internally they've always been their entire life. And the more you can figure that out or just accept that on the front end of you are this, not good or bad, it's just like who you are as an individual, and start to shift your efforts to those things, it just starts to become more natural. But there's a lot of people that are just misaligned in where they live or who they're around or what they value or where they work, and they're not really passionate. But then the problem is they get deeper into that and the baggage that comes with it, and it's like really hard to untangle that. And so if you can just stay close to the things that you're just naturally interested in that don't feel like work, that you talk about, that you do anyway, I think moving there and not putting not expecting it to be what you think it's going to be on TV. Like, okay, if I'm in sports, I got to be in a player, or if I'm in media, I got to be whoever you name, or if I'm in business, I got to be CEO and make $1 billion. If you're in your sweet spot doing the things that you're supposed to do and it's authentic to you, you're going to find happiness, joy there. And the other stuff is luck, it's timing, it's random. If I came out today, would I make it to Georgia? Would I make it to that? I don't know, But would I still enjoy playing football and sports and have great memories that I can have with my friends for the rest of my life? Yes. And then you figure out what to do after that.
Yeah, that's deep right there, man. Like, I mean, it's crazy how many people don't know themselves, right? Or if they look at themselves close enough or ask for that feedback from those that they trust, they don't really like what they see, right?
They may not like what they're presenting, but most people that are authentically themselves, not like being overly loud or being overly like asking for attention, but just like sitting at peace with themselves, there's a version of that everywhere in the world. And so even if you're in an environment where you're not being accepted for yourself, it's more so changing that environment, because the environment may not change for you, or you just may be out of place to begin with. So the more you can kind of craft your life around the things that are uniquely you, I think you start to find peace. But the conversation that we were having again, there's all this artificial stuff that we think that we want or we get, and we realize that, I don't really care about it that much. But those are the things that we chase, and it's just very hard to reprogram your mind because we're human.
Do you think we're chasing those because we want the connection, but we don't really understand what authentic connection is? And maybe chasing something gives us that without having to go deep.
I don't know. I don't think any of us know. I think we just think that that's what it's supposed to be. Like it's the unhinged freedom that we actually want, but it's the other things that we think we're supposed to have that we run and we chase, myself included. Like still trying to work through it. It's like, what is that things that I'm actually doing uniquely for me and my family, and what are the things that are being swayed because of what I think it's supposed to be or what I think it looks like. And the more you can untangle that and like sit in your comfort zone, I think you're not just worried about all that extra baggage. There's a couple people that I know that some have resources, some don't have resources, but they've arrived at the same point, and I'm still working to get there, to be honest.
How many times a day do you guys experience joy, would you say? How many times a day do you experience joy?
I wake up with joy. My college receiver coach, he used to say something that made no sense at the time. And he's like, don't ever let anyone steal your joy. He'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking? Good game, bad game, whatever the case may be. He said, Mo, don't let them steal your joy. And I think it's something like interesting because it's like you already have it. What steals it is the thing that we're trying to figure out. So it's like, don't let anyone steal your joy. So I'm waking up joyful. I'm taking in the birds might be chirping. You see your family and how they're waking up and how they're loving on you. You're loving on them. And it's just, once again, those little things. It's not most memories are the little things that you think, and I think that's joy. It's not, if I go buy a watch or go buy a car or go buy whatever, I'll like it for, a week or so, and then I won't go put gas in the car, or I won't adjust the time on the watch. And it's just, we get tired of it.
Unless it's a 1982 Porsche. What about you, Patrick?
Yeah, for me, I experience joy every day. I've shared this with you. I didn't for a long time, but and I've always heard that, right? Don't let nobody steal your joy. And the only people that really steal our joy is ourselves, because we allow the stuff and the noise from other people to take that away, because we think we're supposed to be something that we're not, instead of really diving in internally and doing that work to figure out who we are. And once I figured out who I was, and it's still a struggle every day, right? Like I don't have that all figured out, but I'm at peace with who I am today, and I've forgiven myself for the decisions and the bad choices that I made in the past, which allows me to live in the present and to be joyful in every moment of every day and appreciate every little thing.
And I think there's something to be said to be, a lot of people are in competition with external things, external people, external expectations. And if you could just be in competition with your own potential of, my God-given ability is going to get this, and I'm going to work to extract all that I can. And it's not even just about me. It's the value that I'm supposed to give out. It repurposes you. And I think I'm more post-accident moving in that direction of, what is my potential here on this earth? What is the impact that I'm supposed to have? Strip away all the noise of what it's supposed to like, what I think is supposed to happen, and let me go down that path. And it's kind of been exciting, because that what allows you to hunt and go and be energized every day. And some days are good, some days are bad, but you're still aligned to your thing, not the thing that everyone is expecting of you.
You mentioned like a watch or a car, or any of that stuff. I had a conversation with someone the other night, and they brought up this terminology, and I'd lived my life like this for a long time. I'll be happy when. Did you ever live in the I'll be happy when, or is that not a thing for you?
I think for me, I didn't know. I didn't actually know what it was that I was supposed to be doing, because once again, it's all new. Like culturally, I grew up Liberian. The shows I watched, the food I ate, so it was almost like a bubble within inside a bubble, and there was no preparation for, you start playing ball and then you get scholarships, and then you're at this school where people are really excited for football, and then you go to the NFL, and it's almost playing catch up to life, and then all of a sudden you're trying to figure out life, but you kind of have some public attention and you don't want to figure out life in front of people, but then you don't know what you're doing behind the scenes. And then all of a sudden you just stop and say, let me calibrate a little bit. And so it's not necessarily I'm living for when, it was figuring out, okay, what is it? Because it's the football thing has happened, it's gone. And then what does chapter 2 look like? And what will chapter 3 look like? And being able to slow down enough to actually think like that versus just jumping into the next thing and being artificially busy versus like actually productive in a way that has some long legs to it.
So it almost sounds like it's a little bit of a blessing to have some Liberian heritage and to where there's certain things that you didn't know. And so there wasn't already a built-in expectation that maybe some of us grow up with, and this is who you're supposed to be.
Yeah, so there was no expectation, but there was like a foreignness of what is it? Like what is it? It's, had I not played football, I don't know what that thing was. And I didn't know what the options were. If I could change anything, it would be spending a little more time figuring out what are my options, because a lot of people just do what's proximal to them. Where I did a panel discussion for Morgan Stanley. They're like, hey, do you want to become an advisor? I'm like, yeah, cool. But had I stopped and said, okay, what are the other things that might be equally as cool or more cool or gotten me to this place earlier? Like, oh, I want to be an organizational psychologist. Instead of going to Morgan Stanley when I retired in 2014, I would have started that journey and I'd be 10 years in it now versus starting it, back in 2018, 2019, whatever the year was. And so just understanding what your options are. And once again, I think everyone has a set of options. Some people find them quicker. Some people don't find them at all. The more you can find that there's a path for you, that you don't have to pretend to enjoy and like the things that society says are cool or not cool or whatever.
Do you think you're I think an outsider, upon first meeting you, I don't know how long that was, like 3 years ago or something.
Something like that.
I was like, yeah, I really like him, and he listens, and he seems kind of serious, right? And now that I know you, I'm like, dude, I laugh more with Mo, right? Like we when we're hanging out, I am laughing, I am smiling, right? Like one of the things that I really appreciate about you is like I feel like you can show up and just like talk about authenticity, right? I mean, we go deep fast, right? As we're doing your miserable warm-ups and all that stuff, right? Like, I'm not going to warm up. Like, let's just do the sprints and be done. But he has me do warm-ups and whatever. But one of the things that I find so amazing about you and our relationship is that there's not an agenda, right? And we're both going to show up as our authentic selves. And we're going to challenge each other, but also laugh in the process. And that, to me, like if you were to ask me, what is SoulWiggle? It's sharing those moments with someone else, right? And being that, and that's why I think the connection and the community thing is so important. And that's also acknowledging that I'm wired for, I'm as extrovert as they come, right? And I acknowledge that. And I know I tend to exhaust some individuals, my wife specifically, but, talk a little bit, I mean, I guess about for you, what is SoulWiggle and then how does that then open up to your own relationships and who you choose to spend time with?
Yeah, it's interesting because once again, I didn't expect any of this. Like I didn't expect to be playing at a school with 90-some thousand people that had millions of people that are, fans and you love it. But sometimes it's overwhelming because I'm probably more introverted than I am extroverted. I love the one-on-one deep conversations, but when you're meeting people that know you before you know them, it's just like a different element to think about sometimes. And so upon first meeting someone, I'm just trying to calibrate, like, what is this relationship that someone's saying, what's up from across the room? And you're like, do I know you? Do I not know you? What's our real connection? And so it's just hard sometimes because you meet really great people, but you just don't know it. And you may meet 20 people at one time. And so how do you go deep with 20 people if you're at an event and you're just like, hey, what's up, go dogs, go dogs, go dogs. And it's super cool. And then when you can stop and just like truly get to know a person, that's where you just feel a lot more comfortable. And so for me, that I still struggle with it because I love meeting like just really amazing people. But sometimes when you meet a lot of people at one time, you're just trying to just like slow the stimulation down a little bit. And then once you break the ice and you can be real with a person and there's no ulterior motive angle, then it's like, oh, what's up? Like, let's rock and roll. Let's have a really good time. So it's just a different animal. You know, I love it, but the introvert in me sometimes is just like, I don't know what to do.
Retreat.
You know, if I'm at a big conference, I'm probably going to be the guy at the table that's just kind of like people watching. Cause like, what's going on here? So.
I'm the guy that'd be in the corner checking my phone. Somebody would come talk to me. It would be who I am.
Yeah, if let's say we're at the conference, you're checking your phone, I'm checking my phone. We'll have a 2-hour conversation, and I won't even think about what else is going on.
Yeah.
But if I'm just there by myself, and it's just like, once again, it's the depth of it. But when you go to some of these things, and people are just, let me get your business card, let me do and it's, you're like, whoa.
Just the surface level stuff.
How are you doing it? Yeah, the surface level stuff is the thing that when you meet a lot of people, trying to calibrate what is actually going to be a relationship where you can, how are you actually doing? Mm-hmm. I'm not doing well today. It's like, okay, let's operate from that versus everything's great, I'm super busy, and you're like.
Do you have a favorite icebreaker in those situations? Do you use any icebreakers?
If it's a conversation like that, then no. You just kind of let the conversation run its course because you know that person's going to be out of there in like 2 minutes. But it's not the, you know, what school did you go to? Where do you live? What are you into? Like, what's going on? You know, tell me about your family. Tell me like about the stuff that actually really matters. All the other stuff is just kind of smoke and mirrors.
Mm-hmm. Is there a filter for you? Because I would imagine it's hard for you because of, you know, your past and where you played and most people that meet you probably just want to ask a lot of questions of you. Mm-hmm. And they won't really allow themselves to be open up where you could even go deep with them to ask them anything to even create a connection. So do you have like some instant filters where, you know, this person's never going deep with me? And
it's hard though, because I meet some people that are just like huge sports fans, and that's our like entry into the connection. And there's just an authentic, we share a common bond and love for something, and are just world-class individuals. And so you don't really know. It just kind of takes time as to what is what. Like I was telling you earlier, if someone meets you and they don't know you, they're going to just meet you as Chris Tuff. I may meet someone that knows all of my friends, knows where I live, knows everything, and I've never interacted with them before, just because of like the slither of sports in my life. And so that sometimes is whether known, unknown, is just like the underlying thing that I'm subconsciously thinking about until I can kind of really get to know a person. And so that initial meeting of someone is always glitchy because you're like, I just don't know where we're starting.
Yeah, I think it would be harder for you to figure that out, right? Like Chris talks about in his book, kind of the race to the middle, to figure out the connection between two people. Everybody knows where your middle is.
Yeah.
You never know where their middle is. Like, you got to dig to find it.
Dude, I've been dying to go to Liberia. Like, tell me more about it, right? Like,
but what's crazy is, like, I have friends that are way more famous and celebrity than me. And so you might be with them, and then you see the level that they're dealing with it on. And it's just, like, the dynamics of it sometimes are just, like, really, really interesting. But once again, you meet so many great people in the process of, like, there's some people where I've met through, or I would not have met through if it wasn't for sport. And so it's the gift and the other that is, you just sift it through almost.
So what would you say if I asked you the question of what makes your soul wiggle? What would that, and you might need Patrick to fully define soul wiggle. Do you want to do that, Patrick?
Just what moves your soul.
I mean, I like being around love, to be honest with you. Like, just unfiltered, where there's no expectations. So my wife, my daughter, my family, my close friends, where it's just those moments where you're authentically bonding and you're doing life with someone, and the good and the bad, where someone's struggling with something and you want to help them through it, or you're struggling with something and somebody's helping you through it, or business, getting in shape, mental health, vacation, like that holistic life experience that you can do with people that you love is the thing that just energizes me. Is that, you know, it's you can do it all day, you know.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. That's a great way to define it.
Yeah, so wiggle.
Wiggle, wiggle,
Wiggle, wiggle.
wiggle, wiggle.
Do you I know we're getting close here, but you know, you mentioned like finding yourself or figuring out who you are is kind of a recent journey for you, not too long ago. Do you think you have to come to the place where you know who you are to truly experience joy?
I think it's you're never complete. You're always a work in progress, and you take the wins, and you understand the challenges. I think to be stretched and have adversity, if you make it out of it, is such a blessing, because you know how elastic you are as an individual, and the joy is more so just, once again, being aligned. It's not crossing the finish line. It's the just being content with what you're doing and how you're working. There is no metric that you're putting on yourself. It is, I think that I'm living as the version I'm supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And the more that I can do that with the people that I love and just naturally wake up optimistic, intrinsically motivated, that gives me a leg up on so many other things, because we don't control what happens, good or bad. And then to understand the gravity of something, to where I lost my hand, it's super unfortunate, but there's so much other things that I can pull on in life that's just equally as dynamic. And I may have to adjust certain things, but that doesn't mean I can't do certain things, or that doesn't mean that life isn't as dynamic or fun or whatever the case may be. And so it's just grounding yourself in what is true and not all this other artificial stuff that we kind of let get in the way of our journey.
Love that, man.
I do too.
You're awesome, brother.
Yeah.
Y'all are. Keep this up. Keep rolling. Y'all got a friend in me. Unless y'all trying to put me back in the ice tub.
I noticed you didn't show up today.
Family.
Yeah. The next one is where it's all going to come together.
Yeah,
for
I'll
you.
be back.
I want to see Fernando back in that tub, man.
He'll be back.
I know he is. We were texting earlier.
He'll be back.
He can't avoid us.
We looked at each other and was like, boy, this is different. If we were organizing this, so, but nah, man, it's a cool experience. I think that's the other thing of being around people that have equal values but different, because it gives you experiences where I would have never done that anywhere in life. Yeah. And it allows you to grow. It allows people that you trust, people that you like, sharing their experiences as well is, I think, is just something that everyone should do. So you don't have this life that's the same carbon copy of everything else you've done. So
I think we need to invite Patrick to our sprint session once you're fully healed. I think that's.
I'll come do it.
Yeah,
I'll smoke you two.
The
old man.
The old man.
I lost like 25, so y'all gotta watch out.
You better stretch.
You better stretch.
Those hammies get real tender.
Real tender. Awesome. Well, Mo, thank you for joining us. This is awesome.
For sure. Y'all keep it rolling.